Okay, welcome and welcome to today's webinar, Why You Need to Speak the Language of Marketing Performance. My name is Jeff Chamberlain and I'm the Director of Product Marketing with Origami Logic. I'm very excited to have a friend and colleague, Laura Patterson, the founder and president of Vision Edge Marketing with me. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Jeff. Good morning. Really glad to be here with you.
So we're going to do something a little different from a lot of the webinars you've listened to for a while. Instead of running on for 45 minutes and then 15 minutes of Q&A where you've got to try and allocate a major part of your day, we're trying to get across some key points of information in just a little short period of time. So we'll call this more of a webette than a webinar. How about? So we see a lot of interest and demand around marketing measurement, and I'm sure you see the same thing. And it's not hard to figure out. It's becoming more and more of an ante for these marketers to be competitive today. There's a lot of interest, a lot of activity around it, and you can see that there's going to be, it's always easy to go out and find quotes, but the surveys and stuff are certainly showing that marketers are getting very interested in the topic, and so I think our topic today is very timely for helping them at some of the basic levels of marketing measurement, because quite frankly, even though this topic has been around for a long time, we're still really peeling back the onion layers to understand it.
You're right, Jeff. The topic has been around a long time. I mean, we've been doing research since 2001, and Christine Moorman from Duke, Dr. Christine Moorman, who does the CMOsurvey.org, has also been doing research since 1999 in this space.
Yes.
So we've been talking about it, and I guess the question becomes, if we've been talking about it so much and people know how important it is, how come progress is so slow?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out sometimes, but I think, in some ways marketers are slow to change, and that need for accountability has been really divergent from the ability to be accountable. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah. So let's talk about it a little bit. We've got these terms: data, measures, metrics, KPIs. I hear them all the time when we talk to people. But I can tell you, it's very rare when people are really talking about the same thing. So why is that?
Well, you're right. Vocabulary is really important. In the words of Voltaire, let's first define terms if you want to converse. So I do think it is important. People do use a lot of terms, and they use them very interchangeably, but they don't necessarily mean the same thing. So let's just start with the basic ingredient, data, right? That's a very basic ingredient of which today we are swimming in over our heads. There's more data today than when you and I first began our careers. And really, data is pretty much information.
Right.
Both structured and unstructured data in the world of big data have certainly changed things. And in a moment we'll talk about some examples, but really data is basic information. It doesn't have any quantity to it or quality to it. It's just a piece of data, a piece of information. And when you think about it, out of data comes measures, right? So when you're thinking about a measure, which is a type of data, the difference there is that it's about the quantity or quality of something. So there is a component of some way to understand the magnitude of the information, right? And then, so those might be things like how much money something is, or how big a segment is, or what kinds, how many people or customers that you have. These would be examples of things you could measure, right? As opposed to, information about chatting or information around hashtags or something like that.
Okay.
Right? A kind of a measure is a metric.
Right.
So it's really a standard of measure, and there are all kinds of various metrics out there in the world of marketing. In our personal lives, we have metrics that we live with all the time, and that may be metrics in our car around, miles per gallon. It might be a metric in our life, like our body mass index or our heart rate, right? So we have metrics and measures in our lives every day, and so rates of change, share of preference. Those are the kinds of things that might become a metric. Certainly market share, those are examples of metrics. And from your metrics, you can derive a key performance indicator. And that's really something that's going to help you determine, whether you are in line with your performance. So let's give some life to these terms. Let's put them in the context of
help them out with the marketers.
With marketers, right. So a piece of data, an SIC code.
Right.
Right? It's not measurable, but it is really important data.
Right.
Right?
Right. Definitely.
But the number of customers in a segment that is related to your SIC code, now you've got a measure. But it's just a number, right? But the average order value of the top of those customers in that segment, now you're measuring something like, right? What is the average order value? And then the customer lifetime value might be an example of a KPI, right? So these are all examples of one way. And you might look at it another way, like somebody came to your website and downloaded something or registered on your site, right?
Right.
But then the number of net new qualified opportunities, that's a measure that you may or may not be related to your downloads. But then those net new qualified opportunities, and as they move through the pipeline and convert, you could look at marketing's contribution to the pipeline. Now you have a metric, and then ultimately you could tie that to share of brand preference. So what's interesting about these examples is that you can see there is a relationship in these examples from the beginning to the end, and that's going to be really important as we go on in our conversation.
Yeah, you can almost move through them by sort of saying, who cares, or why do I care, right?
Yes.
Why do I care about SIC codes? Well, I want to know how many customers I have there. Oh, well, why do I care about that? Well, I want to know how much they're ordering. So I've always, that kind of the inquisitive is a great way to start to get to aligning from just a piece of data to something that matters to your business, right?
Exactly. And that's a great segue. So you did a great job of introducing some of the research that's going on in the space, and we've been doing research as well. And so I thought I would pull up a couple of slides here that would share with you some key results. So one of the things we've been doing for 15 years is a marketing performance benchmark study. And in that study, we have a number of key questions. And one of the key questions is the grade the C-suite, particularly the CEO, gives their marketers for their ability to prove their value, contribution, and impact. And so those marketers who do well get an A, and those that do sort of well get a B, and then those who do less well are the laggards, or the C's. And we've been able to see a relationship from this in terms of personas. So we're all talking about personas today. There's actually even personas in the NPM space. These value creators, which are really all about connecting marketing to the business and creating value. Sales enablers, who kind of see themselves in service to the sales teams as opposed to the value creators, who see themselves more as partners. But sales enablers are really in service to the sales organization. I've
been there, done that.
Me too.
Or, in B2B especially, yes.
Especially. And then the last group, the campaign producers, these are the folks who really kind of operate like an internal agency, kind of check the box marketers.
Right. Just turning out volume of activity.
So what's cool about this group, and I just looked at 4 years of data, is that how well they understand the metrics that matter to the leadership team. And what you can see here is that the value creators are much more in tune with the right kinds of metrics, right? So they really do understand that far better, right? 5 out of 10. It's not a very good number, right?
No.
You will be happy with that if somebody came home with a score like that on their exam. So that's kind of where the campaign producers, and they're kind of stuck. They really haven't figured it out. But the value creators, they're doing pretty good.
They're getting better scores on knowing the metrics.
On knowing the metrics.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense, obviously. I know marketing is the whole thing about digital marketing that we've seen, obviously. It's been going on for a while, was, now this will solve it. Everything will be easier to measure, right? You remember that conversation? But the reality was there's so much more volume and so much more diversity in the activity that's actually become harder to measure in a lot of ways and more difficult. And I think kind of moving into this slide, this I think will tell some of that story of what's going on with the complexity here.
So you have to have a way to organize or classify your metrics. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of numbers that you're collecting, right? And they don't mean anything, and they're not related to each other. So one of the first things that you have to kind of do is understand what kinds of metrics you have, and then eventually you have to be able to make those tell a story. But let's first start with understanding how to classify them. So we have been using this continuum in this is out there in the public domain, and lots of people use this. It's not the only one, but it at least begins to help people think about what kind of metric they have. So this continuum works left to right. At the very far left are all the things we know pretty well about measuring effort and activity. And marketers, we've been doing this for a long time, right? You know, how many articles we put out, or how many blog posts, or how many tweets we did, or how many emails we sent, how many events we produced. We've been reporting on those things for a long time.
Vanity metrics, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Vanity measures almost, yeah.
Yeah, kind of. But we are numberifying something.
Right.
We've numberfied our effort. And we've given it some kind of quantity or quality. So it really does count as a type of measure. And then along came our friends in finance, you probably remember these days, who said, you know, marketing, you really need to be more accountable. And so being smart marketers, we went and looked up what accountable meant and said, oh, they want us to count stuff. So we created output-based measures, and we've been doing those a long time. And to your point, you know, digital marketing and all of that, we can count. The stuff that we can count today.
Yeah, it's gotten massively bigger, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's like, it's almost impossible to count what we can count today.
Right.
So, you know, when we report on media mentions or click-through rates or webinar participants or website traffic, you know, all the things we talk about in digital marketing, we're really talking about outputs.
Right.
So then you have these operational ones, because then people come along and say, can you marketing, can you do better with the money?
Yeah.
So that's an operational kind of thing, how they can be more efficient. The next step up, that's kind of where marketers are struggling, but where they need to go. Because if they can't get to outcomes, you're just a hamster on the wheel. If you stop at operational metrics, it's just going to be constantly being asked to do more with less.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because that's all what operational metrics are about. Yeah. So if you stop there, you're going to really live a very tough life. So Jeff, you got to get to outcome metrics, and that's what the value creators have figured out, is how to connect marketing back to the business, and they do it through outcome metrics. And then this stuff behind them, further to the left, that's metrics that they weave in.
That's what feeds the outcome base, right?
Yes.
But, yeah, you got to know that to get there, but obviously you need to associate it to the business results. Right?
Exactly. And all the pressure that marketers are getting now to be more predictive with their measures, right? To move from descriptive to predictive marketing, to get more prescriptive eventually, to be able to build models. You can't do that on the bottom very well if you don't understand the outcomes at the top, because that's where the questions are derived. And so then once you get to the outcomes, you're starting to collect a different kind of data that will allow you to build those models. And I know that that's a conversation we're going to run into in just a moment.
Yeah. We've looked at the maturity model for marketing measurement, because we get in and we have to assess an account again where they are and what they can do, and this very much, I think, kind of correlates to moving up that chain of maturity. As you get more involved with measurement and understand it better, you're going to naturally move up this.
Exactly.
Hopefully, naturally.
So if you're at the bottom two, you're kind of in your mind, would that be kind of like in the immature model?
Yeah, that's just getting started and trying to understand, you know, for the first time thinking about how to measure what you're doing, and you would think. Most marketers are doing that at this point, and I know most solutions will spit out those kind of measures today.
That's a really good point. The platforms kind of perpetuate the challenge, right? Because you get comfortable with clicking on the report button in whatever tool you're using, thinking you're getting something that's maybe a dashboard, which we will talk about, but what you're really getting is maybe data and measures.
Right. So let's talk about some of these terms. You talked about data a little bit. So
data is the primary ingredient. You know, when you're thinking about the ingredient to everything you're going to do in marketing today, you have to have your data. And back to what we said earlier. And then that data is you apply analytics. And, you know, when people get a little scary maybe about the term analytics, it's not a new idea. We've been doing analytics in marketing. Marketing scientists and marketing researchers have been using analytics for forever.
Right.
Forever and ever. We've applied analytics in all kinds of ways. Really, this is the discovery, the interpretation, the communication of meaningful patterns of data. And to do that, you have to apply some kind of math. Right. So marketers have to embrace math.
a new thing for many marketers. yes.
And then those analytics kind of can be used in primarily today by marketers in one of two ways: to build models, right? Models like pricing models or segmentation models, or
attribution and
attribution
marketing mix are big topics of today, right?
Customer retention models or
Right.
risk models, predisposition to purchase models, like all of those kinds of models. That comes through that flow. But then also analytics are the fundamental elements and building blocks and method for getting to your dashboard, which gives you that view into how you're actually performing
Right.
against the targets that you've set in order to help the organization achieve its objectives, achieve its goals.
And we're going to have another little web app soon. I'll just give a little preview around dashboards specifically, because it's a fairly critical topic.
And a very favorite topic.
Yeah. And then we got data science, right? Which is kind of a fairly new discipline that is the fact of, all these things converging together: math, statistics, and computer science. So math, it's been around forever. Statistics has been around for a long time. But the ability to apply computer science into that is giving us a lot of new capability. And data science, what's unique about it, and I think what's unique for marketers to understand, is that it's not just getting in and crunching numbers. They have to be able to put it in a business context. Their purpose is to solve business issues. So they have to be able to not only understand all that technology, but be able to apply it to business. And there's an emerging role out there, not only of data science, but there's an emerging role of people trying to either automate that through software. We have some data science in our software for anomaly detection and things like that, but also people that are able to work with data scientists to do that translation. So marketers more and more are going to have to work with technical people to try and bridge that gap between what the business needs are and how to correlate to business and that technical interpretation. So.
Exactly, and Tom Davenport and his team that wrote the concept about being the analytics competitor, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about being able to answer those important business questions and being able then to unearth the data and put it through its paces in order to get answers to those critical questions. What market should we be in? What customers should we be serving? What products or solutions should we be making?
Right.
Those kinds of questions. Those are the questions the C-suite are asking. Those are all marketing questions.
Right. It's a new competitive front. I mean, we've always thought about competing on the product, and sometimes you've thought about competing on your marketing or your message, but it's really the blending of that. It's a new competitive front coming out of data science. So this sounds difficult. That looks difficult. Why do we do all this? Why do we worry about all these measures and stuff?
Well, Jeff, you're right. It's hard work.
Yeah.
Let's not mislead anyone. If you want to do this, it's hard work. But you don't have to climb the mountain all at once, so to speak.
Right.
You take it in baby steps. You put together a roadmap, something we help our customers do, and figure out what the right milestones are. I think what's really important, though, is not just to go out and buy a new toy, right? It's not about buying a new tool or a new marketing technology. You really have to understand where that fits in your roadmap, what processes you're going to have behind it, what are going to be the important measures, metrics, and KPIs you want to use in the dashboard, which is really critical, all those kinds of questions. And so it is hard work, but it does have a lot of payoff. So one of the things that it pays off is that if you do it right, you can really show that marketing is making a difference to the business. Isn't that why we go to work every day? Is because we want to move the needle for the business?
Yes, definitely.
So
yes.
If you look here, I mean, every marketer group is making headway, but you can see when and with those value creators are holding steady, still doing it way better. The sales enablers have made some good headway. The campaign producers have made some good way, but they're still behind the learning curve here in terms of being able to show their contribution to the business.
So, I mean, some of these topics I think everybody's heard, right? We, as marketers now, we need to be more accountable to the business. And with digital, we have the ability to measure. I think what the culture has done, unfortunately, though, they've kind of thought it was just going to fall out naturally from the technology and what's going on. And it's hard work. And understanding things like the definitions of these terms and what they mean and what they mean to your business and applying it to your business, that's really how you get going on this, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to start somewhere.
Yeah. So.
And the thing that's really interesting about this group and about those that do it well is who is their champion and who is their thorn in their side.
That's a great indicator, isn't it?
It really is. So the value creators, the CEO is their most consistent champion. And of course, they're getting the A's from the CEO. That makes sense. But they really have a champion in the CEO. Who in marketing wouldn't want that?
Right.
Right? The big issue, though, is for those sales enablers and campaign producers who are constantly having to have those really tough conversations with the CFO. Right?
Right.
Who wants that conversation? I mean, we've all been there.
The CFO, we like to call it. That's what you hear when you ask for more money, usually, right?
And it has a lot to do with planning. The very plans that marketers put together, which are oftentimes not outcome-based. There may be some measures, there may not be, but if they are, they're really down at the output level. There's a list of things, or at the very worst, it's a list of things that marketing is going to do, when they're going to do it, and how much it's going to cost. And so the CFO comes in and starts having this conversation. I'm not really sure why we're doing this many events this year. Maybe we don't need this many events. I think I'm going to take out these events from your budget, and because we need to take your budget and apply it somewhere else. There's really no conversation because marketing hasn't done their job, right? To articulate the value. Back to the value creation.
The days when you can get away with, well, it's really hard to measure and we can't correlate it, those are kind of gone, I think. You know?
And no surprise about the sales enablers having sales as their most consistent champion because that's their primary.
They're seeing the volume, right? They're seeing the activity.
Yeah, and they're in service to the salespeople.
Right.
The campaign producers, too, though, get sales as a support because they're making the stuff.
Right. Yeah, they like more stuff to play with. Yeah, obviously.
They don't know what works, but they know what they want stuff. And so they actually get even, what another key thing here is about their credibility. So as marketers, if we're more credible, we have more influence. Right? If we're credible and we have more influence, then we also can help lead direction, right?
Sure.
So our credibility, if you look again at these groups, it's the value creators that are doing the best in terms of having credibility, particularly again, if you have the CEO as your champion, you're going to be more credible with them. If you have look at their credibility with the CFO, even the business unit leaders, even with sales, even though they are not maybe their best champion, you have more credibility, which is pretty important, right?
They still get paid by how many deals they do, so they understand when business is happening, don't they?
Right. As you can see here, and then this kind of supports the previous slide.
Right. Right. No, it's a marked difference, and we've all talked about that CMO getting the seat at the table in the executive suite, and this is the ticket. Right?
This is the ticket.
Laura and I both work in this marketing measurement world, and but we come at it from two different areas. So we thought it was a great combination to have both of us here. Let me tell you a little bit about my company, Origami Logic. We're a solution provider, and one of those famous Silicon Valley startups, although we've been around for a few years now. So you can see that we've started to penetrate some pretty good brands down there at the bottom with the likes of Procter & Gamble and Arrow Electronics, Cisco, Hewlett-Packard, Wells Fargo. So across a lot of industries and a lot of areas. Our solution is really designed to do something kind of different. In fact, before I joined Origami Logic, I didn't think this could be done. But we're tackling a pretty difficult problem of bringing your data in from all your different marketing sources and being able to surface that as both dashboards and alerts and notifications. So we put a lot of power and flexibility, big data capability so that it can scale up to the likes of the largest brands in the world. Laura, why don't you tell us a little bit about Vision Edge?
Sure. We're 17 years old, and we kind of pioneered the space of marketing performance, measurement, and management.
Definitely.
And we're all about using data analytics, process, and measurement to help improve the value of marketing and really help marketers and companies make better strategic decisions and investments. We've been really fortunate to work with many of the same kinds of customers that you have, and as well as others. We're predominantly working in the B2B space, and we're just thrilled to have the opportunity to work with companies who really want marketing to lead their organizations to success.
Yeah, we can certainly tell when someone with your kind of expertise has been in an account, because when we get in, things are going to go much smoother. They know what they need and they know what they want, and that really helps us. So that's it. We promised you a little web app. That's on the metrics, measures, and the key terminology around marketing performance measurement. We've got a couple of things that you can go out and read about to get a little bit more information. We'd love you to check out both of our companies if you're looking at moving forward here. So Laura, you've got access to this study that you've been.
Yeah, we have an abbreviated version of the study that's free in the public domain that you can just get on our website. Doesn't have every single piece of information in it, but enough to kind of maybe whet their appetite. And
Sure.
love to have a conversation with anybody who really wants to, wherever they are in their journey, right? Because different places in your journey will require different kinds of things.
No doubt, no doubt. And attribution is a pretty hot topic as a model today. And when we walk into a lot of marketers today, we'll talk about this in the next session on dashboards. Attribution is on their lips. So we've put together a white paper to talk a little bit about attribution and what it means and how it works in the context of measuring all of your marketing. So you can go out and find that on Origami Logic's resource page. And thank you very much. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Jeff. This has been fun.